The Elize Matsunaga case, the truth behind the crime that shocked Brazil. The day silence became too loud. Have you ever imagined coming home, opening the door, and never walking out again? On May 19, 2012, in a luxurious duplex apartment in Vila Leopoldina, in the west zone of São Paulo, something happened that would forever change the history of a family, and of Brazil as a whole. It wasn't just a crime. It was an explosion of repressed emotions, wounded pride, fear, power, and at the center of it all were two names, Elize Matsunaga, Marcos Matsunaga, a couple who, on the outside, seemed to be living a modern fairy tale. But on the inside, the story was different. And today, I'm going to take you to the center of that night. No exaggeration, no romanticizing, no rushed judgments, just the facts, and the questions that continue to echo to this day. Take a deep breath, because this story doesn't begin with a gunshot. It begins with a choice. The meeting that changed destinies in 2004, Marcos Matsunaga, heir to one of the largest food industry companies in Brazil, met Elize Araujo Giacomini. They met on a dating website. She was 23 years old. He was married. For 3 years, the two maintained a secret relationship, until Marcos decided to divorce and publicly assume his relationship with Elize. In 2009, they married in a lavish ceremony, 300 guests, Anglican church, impeccable reception. She, who came from a humble childhood in the countryside of Paraná, now lived in a high-end penthouse. But here's the first question I want you to keep in mind. When two people meet carrying such different histories, do they complete each other, or do they destroy each other? The childhood nitrogen monoxide. One saw Elize grew up in Chopinzino, in the countryside of Paraná. Daughter of a single mother, few resources. Simple life. From an early age, she understood what scarcity meant. Later, as an adult, she moved to Curitiba to study nursing. Then she went to São Paulo. That's where her life took another turn. She began working as a high-end escort. And it was in that context that she met Marcos. Some see ambition, others survival. But one thing is certain, she was not born into the world she eventually came to inhabit. And that often creates invisible cracks. The marriage during the first year, friends and family described the couple as harmonious. They traveled, dined at upscale restaurants, practiced sport shooting. Yes, both were registered collectors and shooters. Firearms were part of the couple's daily life, a detail that, years later, would carry enormous weight. In 2011, their daughter was born, and for a while, it seemed like everything was on track. But appearances, sometimes, are like glass, transparent and extremely fragile. The first suspicions over time, Elize began to suspect infidelity. Messages, suspicious meetings, changes in behavior. According to reports, arguments became frequent. And here it's important to understand something. Infidelity isn't just about cheating. It's about broken trust. It's about loss of security. It's about fear, especially when a child is involved. Elize sought out a lawyer to understand what her rights would be in the event of a separation. She wanted to know what would happen to her daughter. According to reports, her greatest fear was losing custody. And then she hired a private investigator. The discovery of the investigator followed Marcos, documented meetings, photographed dinners, recorded everything. And when Elize received the report, something inside her changed. She returned from a trip earlier than expected. May 19, 2012, Marcos picked her up at the airport. The two went up together to the apartment. The nanny was dismissed hours later. And there, only 3 people remained: Marcos, Elize, and their 1-year-old daughter. What happened inside that apartment is still debated to this day. But what is known is that there was an argument. A gun was used. A shot was fired. And Marcos Matsunaga never left that apartment alive. The longest night. Now I want you to stop and think with me. Imagine the silence after an irreversible moment. There's no going back, no undoing it, no reset button, only decisions. And the decisions that followed are what transformed this case into one of the most shocking in Brazil. But that I'll tell in the next part, because what happened after the shot is what truly divided the country. What happened inside the apartment? It's around 7:30 p.m. The nanny has already left. The elevator rises to the penthouse. The door closes. And according to what was later reconstructed, the conversation begins right there. According to her testimony, that night she revealed that she had hired a detective. Marcos allegedly became enraged. Security cameras show him going down to the ground floor shortly afterward, visibly irritated, kicking the elevator wall. He went to get a pizza. That detail seems trivial, but think about it. How many tragedies have happened on nights that seemed ordinary? He returned, entered the apartment, and this is where the versions begin to diverge. Elize's version, according to her, after revealing the affair, the argument intensified. She claimed she was slapped in the face, that he threatened her, that he said he would take their daughter away from her. She says she left the room they were in, went to another area, and grabbed one of the guns the couple kept at home. She claims she grabbed the gun to intimidate him, but Marcos allegedly advanced toward her, and then the shot was fired. A single shot to the head. She says it was a reaction, fear, instinct, but forensic experts found inconsistencies. The distance she alleged did not match the evidence found. The trajectory of the bullet also did not perfectly align with the version presented, and that planted a doubt that never left this case. Was it impulse? Or had something already been prepared? The silence after the shot. Imagine the echo of a gunshot inside a large apartment, and then silence. A heavy silence, irreversible. Their daughter was upstairs. The building recorded no suspicious movement. No one called the police that night. And here begins the part that most intrigues investigators. Because what came next is not compatible with someone in uncontrolled shock. What came next required organization, time, emotional control. According to reports, there was waiting. There was cleaning. There was manipulation of the scene. She changed clothes, tried to erase traces, and at some point during the night, made a decision that would turn the case into one of the most discussed in Brazilian criminal history. The decision: there was no call for help. There was no immediate attempt to flee. There was calculation. According to court records, the body was dismembered, placed in specific plastic bags, organized into suitcases. And here is a point that always shocks people when they hear it for the first time. This was not done in a rush. It was not done haphazardly. There was method. There was sequence. There was an attempt to reduce evidence. And there is still a question that generates debate to this day. The medical examiner's report indicated technical differences in the cuts made. Some were precise, others more irregular. This raised the hypothesis of possible assistance. But that line was never proven in court. Officially, she acted alone. The next morning, it was already May 20th. Around 11 a.m., the building's cameras recorded a seemingly ordinary scene. Elize enters the elevator with 3 large suitcases. She appears to struggle moving them. The suitcases go down to the garage. They are placed in the car. She leaves the building with no apparent rush, no visible panic, without anyone imagining what was happening. On the way toward Parana, she changes her mind. She does not continue to her hometown. She decides to remain in São Paulo. On a road in Cotia, the suitcases are abandoned, separately, over several kilometers. That night, she returns to the building without the suitcases, without commotion, without informing anyone. And in the following days, a new phase of the story begins. The phase of staging. The disappearance she reports her husband missing. Sends emails as if she were him. Attempts to maintain the narrative that Marcos had traveled, but technology leaves traces. IP addresses, timestamps, connections, and little by little, inconsistencies begin to accumulate until body parts are found and everything changes. Police cross-reference building footage. They see that Marcos entered, but never left. And then the main suspect becomes the person who was inside with him. And here I want you to think with me. What leads a person to go so far after an irreversible moment? Fear of prison? Desperation? Coldness? Survival instinct? Or all of it mixed together? In the next part, we'll enter the investigation. The investigation and the contradictions. On May 23, 2012, parts of a body are found in Cotia, in Greater São Paulo. There was no immediate identification, but one detail caught investigators' attention. The physical characteristics were compatible with a businessman who had been missing for days. Elize Matsunaga. The case, which until then had been treated as a disappearance, completely changes category. Now, it is a homicide investigation, and everything begins to connect. The first mistake, when police analyze security camera footage from the building where the couple lived, something stands out. Marcos enters the building, but there is no record of him leaving. No footage, no movement, no log at the front desk. That means only one thing. If he left, it wasn't on foot. And inside the apartment that night were only 2 adults. Technology doesn't lie. Elize had sent emails as if she were her husband, trying to maintain the narrative that he was alive and traveling. But digital tracking leaves footprints. The emails were sent from locations incompatible with the version presented. Police identified connections linked to places she had frequented. The story begins to collapse, but material proof was still missing. And that's where forensic analysis comes in. The apartment, the duplex, had nearly 2,000 square meters, 2 integrated floors, multiple bedrooms, bathrooms with bathtubs, an enormous space. For forensic experts, that meant one thing: meticulous work. The first luminol test, a substance that reacts with traces of blood, did not show immediate results in some expected areas. A mattress had even been replaced. Police went after the old mattress. Nothing conclusive. But when the investigation moved to the lower floor, traces began to appear, invisible to the naked eye, but visible to chemistry. The blood was there, in strategic points, consistent with the dynamics of the crime. The reconstruction during the reenactment, Elize presents her version. She states the shot was fired from nearly 2 meters away, but the ballistic report indicates another possibility. The so-called tattooing zone indicated much closer range. Much closer. The trajectory also matters, front to back, top to bottom, left to right. Experts raised the hypothesis that the shot may have occurred as Marcos was entering the apartment, not during an advance. But that conclusion was never officially established as absolute fact. It remains a point of technical debate. The dismemberment here is the point that causes the most discomfort, and I will address it with the respect the subject requires. The medical examiner's report noted that some cuts demonstrated precision, others were more irregular. This raised a technical hypothesis: possible participation of more than one person. But attention, this was never proven in court. No second person was indicted. Officially, she acted alone. Even so, the doubt remained in the public imagination. The road, another point that generated questions, was the disposal. The parts were left along a road, distributed at different points. That requires time. It requires calm. It requires decision. She stated she changed her mind midway on the way to Piranha. That she decided to return. But details in the report indicated that some parts may have been kept in a refrigerated environment before disposal. That generated even more speculation. But again, nothing was proven beyond the authorship already confessed. The arrest with a set of evidence, footage, traces, digital tracking, police requested temporary detention. She was detained, and days later, she confessed. But the confession did not end the debate. She admitted to the shooting, admitted to the dismemberment, but maintained that she acted under intense emotion. And here the case ceases to be merely technical and becomes legal. Because now the question changes. Was it aggravated homicide motivated by vile reasons? Or a crime committed under violent emotion? And that answer would be in the hands of 7 jurors. A divided Brazil public opinion splits. Some see calculated coldness, others see a coward woman. Some speak of ambition, others speak of desperation. And here is something important. A court judges evidence, but society judges narratives. And narratives are built from emotions. The trial that stopped the country November 2016, 4 years after that night, the courthouse was packed. Press, onlookers, experts, cameras, microphones. Elize Matsunaga entered the courtroom to be judged by a jury trial. 7 jurors, 7 ordinary people, holding in their hands the power to decide her fate. And there, 2 versions began to compete for the truth. The prosecution's theory: for the public prosecutor's office, the case was clear. It was not impulse. It was not an accident. It was not an uncontrolled reaction. It was aggravated homicide. According to the prosecution, there was a vile motive. There was impossibility of defense by the victim, and there was coldness in the execution. They highlighted important points. Elize had already consulted a lawyer, already knew about the affairs, already hired a detective. In other words, she knew the marriage was hanging by a thread. The prosecution argued that she feared losing her standard of living, feared losing stability, feared losing control, and, according to this line, decided to act. The fact that she carried out the subsequent procedure in an organized manner reinforced this thesis. Because, according to the prosecutor, someone who acts in total loss of control does not act methodically hours later. The defense's theory: the defense built a different narrative. For them, the shot was the consequence of an intense argument. They spoke of constant humiliation, of threats related to custody of the daughter, of physical aggression that night. According to this version, Elize did not plan to kill. She reacted, and only afterward, in a state of shock, made desperate decisions to conceal what she had done. The defense also raised the possibility of brain death after the shot. Because if the victim was already brain dead, the aggravating factor of cruel means could not be applied, and that would significantly reduce the sentence. The testimony when Elize spoke in court, the atmosphere grew heavy. She cried at certain moments, sighed she cannot undo the past, said she regrets it, sighed she only wanted to protect her daughter. But one point drew attention. She maintained the version of a longer shooting distance, even with reports indicating otherwise. And that left the jurors facing a difficult choice: believe the emotional version or the technical evidence. Personality on trial. During the trial, experts were cited. Some spoke about emotional coldness, about possible egocentric traits, about absence of immediate remorse. Others reinforced her difficult life history: childhood marked by instability, constant search for security. But here is something important. The jury does not judge personality. It judges fact. It judges evidence. It judges legal classification. And that distinction is fundamental. The juror's decision, after intense days, hours of debate, questioning, presentation of reports, emotional arguments, the 7 jurors retire to vote. The verdict is announced. She is convicted of aggravated homicide and concealment of a corpse. But not for cruel means. The sentence imposed, 19 years and 11 months in prison, initially under a closed regime. The trial ends, but the debate does not. Because even with a defined sentence, the country remained divided. If this story made you reflect, don't let it stop here. Subscribe to the channel now, because there are stories that need to be told, not to entertain, but to open our eyes. Every video here is a deeper dive into real cases that show what happens when society chooses to ignore the warning signs. And make sure to watch the next video already appearing on your screen, because understanding the past may be the only way to avoid repeating the same mistakes.